Throughout this pandemic, 4 little letters have represented a revolution in healthcare that has saved millions of lives. mRNA. It's the technology behind the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, and scientists, doctors, and drug makers hope its potential can stretch far beyond COVID-19. Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa. I asked him how mRNA vaccines differ from traditional ones.
Okay, so if you think about a virus in your environment as like a criminal in your community, and imagine that the police want to alert you to the identity of this criminal so you can keep them out of your home. So the old-fashioned vaccines would be like the police bringing the actual criminal to your doorstep and saying, if you see this guy, don't let him in. So a more advanced vaccine would take a portion of the virus and show that to your immune system. And that would be like the police bringing a headshot, a picture of the criminal and bringing it to your door and saying, put this up at the front of your doorstep and every day check it to see if that person wants into your house and keep them out. What the mRNA vaccines do is they make it even simpler. It's like the police emailing you a digital copy of the criminal's photograph, and you print it out at home and you put it at your doorstep, and every day you look at it to see if is the criminal outside my door. If not, I can go out. So what the mRNA vaccines do then is they hijack the process that your cells have of creating proteins all day, and they essentially tell your cell to create the protein that resembles a part of the virus. So you print out the photograph of that criminal and remind your body not to let him in when you see him.
Even though most people never heard the letters mRNA before 3 years ago, research on its potential in fighting disease goes back decades. Why did it take a once-in-a-century pandemic to open the doors for its use?
Yeah, so you're right. The companies have been working on this since at least the 1990s. The problem was developing a stable delivery system because the mRNA molecule is quite fragile. And those two companies both developed stable delivery systems just as the pandemic was declared. So that was the first lucky break. Then there's another huge advantage. They didn't need the actual virus to create vaccines. All they needed was the virus's genetic sequence. And so you could just create a vaccine without ever getting a sample of the virus or ever touching an infected person. That's huge. And the other big advantage, if that can be said, of a pandemic was the urgency and government funding. So governments could underwrite the risk for large clinical trials. So what the pandemic offered really was the opportunity to put this kind of technology in play. If you need a fast vaccine, mRNA is the technology for you.
And what are some of the other potential uses of it?
So I think we might be looking at a whole new era of immunotherapy. So it's possible that we might be able to make vaccines against things like Lyme disease, HIV, genital herpes, C. difficile, tuberculosis, malaria, Zika virus. And if you think about maybe training your immune system to clear out other kinds of anatomical features or physiological features, then maybe we can train our immune systems to clear out cancer cells or the beta amyloid plaques that create Alzheimer's disease, and maybe even some features of heart disease. So in other words, it's not just vaccines, but therapies also, and maybe even possibly cures.
So is mRNA truly a holy grail, or has its promise been overstated?
We're much closer now to a universal flu vaccine, which was the holy grail of vaccinology for a while. And we might be looking at a whole new era of personalized medicine where vaccines and therapies can be manufactured for a small group, not just millions of people. So economically, that wasn't possible before. That's huge. But nothing is ever as good as it's promised. So this is just one excellent new tool. But that's all it is, a new tool. Newer technologies are still going to come. And the good news is that we have these new tools. So I look at it as having more options. And now there's hope where in some cases there wasn't any before. That's where we are now, and that's a pretty good place to be.
Raywat, thank you so much for breaking this down for us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.